Kunda Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravaradhikacharya Stotra Satta Shri Śrīmad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Galadhar Shri Vasudhi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Ki Shri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Shri Vrindavan Dharma Ki Mayapur Navadip Dharma Ki Jagannath Puri Dharma Ki Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Ganga Mai Ki Yantala Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Ki Nitago Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Could somebody get me the Bhagavatam, please? And could someone grab a glass of water for me? I don't know. Sounds like it. Is that okay? What a festival, huh? Krishna consciousness is just a continuous festival. Only devotees know how to party, you know. This is now Planet of the Apes. Monkey warriors everywhere. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thanks, Prabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're starting a new chapter on the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 15, Text 1. Sri Sukha Uvacha Uchatur Mita Kopante Patitam Mita Kopanam Shokham Bibhutam Rajanam Bodhayanto Sakutibhi. Sri Sukha Uvacha Uchatu Mita Kopante Patitam Mita Kopamam Shokabhir Bhutarajanam Bohayanto Sakutibhi. Sri Sukha Vacha Utatu Mita Kopante Patitam Mita Kopamam Shokabhir Bhutarajanam Bodhayanto Sakutibhi. Sri Sukha Vacha Kopante Patitam Mita Kopanam Shokabhir Bhutarajanam Bodhayanto Sakutibhi. Sri Sukha Uvacha Utako Mita Kopante Patitam Mita Kopanam Bodhayanto Sakutibhi. Sri Sukha Uvacha Utako Mita Kopante Patitam itakopanam. Shukabhibhutam rajanam. Purayanto sakutibi. Ladies. Sri Sukha uvacha. Uttukapante. Kutibi Avacha Sako mitakopante Patita mitakopanam Shoka vibhuta rajanam Buddhayanto sakutibi Sri Sukha Vacha Achatu mitakopante Patita mitakopamam Sukha vibhuta rajanam Bhutayanto sakutibi. Sri Sukha Vacha. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, Uchatu, they spoke, Mittaka, the dead body, Upante, near, Patitam, fallen, Mittaka, Mittaka upamam, exactly like another dead body, Shokam abhibi bhutam, very much aggrieved by lamentation. Rajan, to the king. Bohayanto, giving instruction. Satkutibi, by instructions that are factual, not temporary. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Sukadev Goswami said, while King Chitraketu, overcome by lamentation, lay like a dead body at the side of the dead body of his son, the two great sages, Narad and Angira, instructed him about spiritual consciousness as follows. There's no purport to this, so I'll keep reading. O king, what relationship does the dead body for which you lament have with you? And what relationship do you have with him? There's a little spider here who is keen to be part of the Bhagavatam class. Hang on. See you later. Woo. With him. You may say that you are now related as father and son, but do you think this relationship existed before? Does it truly exist now? Will it continue in the future? Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The instructions given by Narad and Angira Muni are true spiritual instructions for the illusion-conditioned soul. The world is temporary, but because of our previous karma, we come here and accept bodies, creating temporary relationships in terms of society, friendship and love, nationality and community, which are all finished at death. These temporary relationships did not exist in the past, nor will they exist in the future. Therefore, at the present moment, the so-called relationships are illusion. Om Jnana Timidandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhabheva Patitanam Pavanebhya Vaishnavebhya Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is a new chapter. Previously we were discussing about how King Chitraketu and his wife were really lamenting about the loss of their child. So in this chapter, instruction is being given to King Chitraketu. So he was lamenting, although he was an incredibly highly qualified personality, still he was lamenting the loss of a loved one. And we see this in many, many instances that in these times of trouble, sometimes this passing of another person close to you, it can be very detrimental, to the extent that sometimes you may lose faith in God. And this is, in a sense, this would have happened to King Chitraketu, was it not for Angira and Narad Muni coming and instructing this person. So it's an important day today on the Vaishnava calendar because it is the appearance day of Lord Balaram. And Lord Balaram is very, very important to all of us. And I've got some notes. Sorry, I have to do some notes because there are a lot of things that I want to cover in this class today. And I don't want to get off the track. So I want to stay on track with what the message is that we're hearing from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. So King Chitraketu was in disbelief that his son had passed away. So I have an awful job sometimes when I do chaplaincy. And I mentioned once before, the worst part of the job is when I have to go to the children's hospital and I have to console members of the Hindu community who have lost a little child. That to me is the hardest thing in my service that I have to do. And somehow or other we have to console those people. They are looking for solace, they are looking for some sort of, just as King Chitraketu here is bereft, his wife is bereft. You see the practical side of it and it can't help but move you. You know, so many people have strived so hard to have a child, they want a child in their life, and then when the child is taken away, they somehow feel that God has abandoned them. And somehow as a representative of Krishna consciousness, a representative of Krishna in a sense, you have to give solace to these people. And it's not easy. It really isn't easy. So you can't be callous at that point of time in their life. You know, I mean, I could read this verse here and the purport that Prabhupada gave, but generally that wouldn't go down too well. You know, oh, they're not really your relatives. So you have to console them, but in the same token, try to make them understand that Krishna still loves you and that this has happened for a reason. The soul is not lost. One of the arguments that I usually give, which helps them, whether it's absolutely true or not, I don't know. It may be. Sometimes I say to the patient, or to the parents, that this soul only had a short journey in this material world. And, you know, it had to fulfill, karmically, it had to fulfill this birth, and then it was free of its karma. So they can accept that, and they understand that. Whether it's absolutely true or not, that's another thing. But they accept it and they feel that there's a connection between me and them, and then I can instruct them further later on. So what it basically is consoling them and setting up a friendship, not to put them off. And this is a big thing in Krishna consciousness. We have the philosophy, and sometimes it's very cut and dry. Sometimes it can be very cutting, and sometimes we have to cut. But generally we have to be really gentle in our preaching, really, really allowing people to come to that point of realization on their own time. Just giving them little drops of information and watching if they can accept what you're saying. So that's what I do. So good Krishna conscious instruction and association can change a person's life, just as we'll see how Narad Muni and Angira are going to change the life of King Chitraketu. In the previous canto, you see the whole Bhagavatam is full of people giving good advice to other people. In the previous canto, we were reading about Jad Bharat and how he was instructing the king, King Rahugana, you know, and even that king was really harsh to him. Still, he was instructing him because that was his mercy. Even Narad Muni himself got direct instructions from the Lord on what to do and what the real message, what the real purpose of human life is. So we get instructions. So it is the duty of a devotee to give good association and give gentle instruction. Very, very easy instruction. An example of this is when Prabhupada, as I said previously, I've been addicted to watching the memories of Srila Prabhupada by the early disciples. I don't know if any of you are seeing that series, they're constantly on YouTube. I get such inspiration from those early devotees of how Prabhupada dealt with them so gently, and so lovingly. And he only gave them little drops all the time. Whenever he met someone new, it was always on a gentlemanly basis, it was always on a very calm basis, and he always instructed them very, very succinctly. The first thing he'd always say is, "You're not this material body." Always, in all his lectures, "You're not this material body." And that was such a powerful thing. So gentle instruction and very understanding is a very important part. But a devotee's death, as Prana Prabhu was mentioning yesterday in class, a devotee's death is glorious. Recently we saw many of our families, parents, passing away. And we're going to see more of it as the years go on, where our elderly parents are going to pass away, and some of us will pass away too. Recently, a devotee who had removed himself from Krishna consciousness for some time passed away. Another person you may have seen here sometimes, Bhakta Marco passed away. But in every instance, some arrangement was made that the devotees had some influence at the time of his passing. And Prana made a point yesterday that even though they may not be in good standing, still Krishna makes the arrangement that somehow or other they hear the holy name. And no more was true than with Marco. We couldn't get to Marco because of the pandemic, and eventually we were able to, but at the time of his death there was a nurse that actually somehow or other realized we couldn't get Prabhupada chanting, we couldn't get anything to Marco. He was in this palliative care hospital, and somehow or other we had to see if we could get it. But anyway, he made somehow or other this nurse somehow felt this person was different. And so she put on a CD of chanting Hare Krishna. So Marco heard this all the time while he was in palliative care. Can you imagine? Just that, there was no indication that he was a devotee, but she somehow felt this person was special. This was Marco. He's just an associate devotee. Krishna is so merciful. And then when I came in, finally, after I was allowed in, after I had my vaccinations and everything else, I finally allowed in, I walked into his room and there's Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I said, "Who beat me in here?" There must have been another devotee who's looking after Marco. And she said, no, one of the nurses is a Hindu, and she felt that he may have liked this music. So Krishna makes the arrangement. And a devotee's death is glorious. And many of our parents have passed away, and perhaps our parents weren't so favourable to us being in Krishna consciousness. And yet, when they passed away, have a guess who was at their bedside chanting for them, even if they didn't know what was going on. That happened with my parents. And then when you see a devotee who is in good standing when they pass away in Mayapur, I had the opportunity of seeing some devotees pass away in Mayapur, just amazing, just amazing. At the last breath they look and they say, "Prabhupada," and they pass away. These sort of things are just amazing, So Krishna never loses a devotee. But the time of death is always tragic. It's a tragedy. But by detachment from the material situation, we get relief from this pain. So we have to be detached. Like even when I do the chaplaincy, I could be remorse for this little child that's died because I have to bless the little child, I have to anoint the little child. When I leave, I have to read something that detaches me from the sad situation. And by the instructions of Guru, reading Bhagavad Gita, hearing a class, yes, I have to be detached, remove myself from the situation. That eases the pain. That eases the pain. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's a thing that we have to do. So when we become detached, getting involved and fully absorbed in service and pastimes of the Lord, that's the way we become detached. And just like last night and the nights before, the beautiful nights that we're having here in Julan Yatra, when you walk into this place, even though it is packed, and we're like sardines, it's a real super spreader, but somehow or other we're okay here. And, but it is so joyous. You leave all your troubles and everything behind. Doesn't matter anymore. Look how glorious the deities are. Look how beautiful the swing is decorated. Look what effort people have gone to glorify and serve the Lord. Just now also with Balarama's appearance day, look at what they've done. It's so different, so amazing, So people's service, it's a beautiful thing, and it's simply gorgeous. And we leave all our problems behind. When we're here and we hear the holy name and Prabhu is up and down dancing and ecstatically chanting, we haven't got a care in the world. Everything is okay. So I remember I told Sukadev the other day, where's Sukadev? Sukadev the other day that Julan Yatra was one of the first times that I came to this temple 43 years ago. 43 years ago, 43? 44. And I walked into this door and Sanganath was here, the old Sanganath? The one, okay, Sanganath that comes every lunchtime. He was here. I was here with a beard and the whole thing, hippie Bhakta, birdie boy, and I got to swing the deities. And I was mesmerized. I couldn't believe it. At that stage you could swing a little bit more than just two, up and down and somebody pushing you off, but I was just there. And I was hypnotized. You know what I was hypnotized by? Radharani's eyes. Radharani was piercing directly in my soul. This is where you belong. Stay here. Don't go to that Mayavad philosophy anymore. Don't do the meditation. Come to Krishna consciousness. And it stuck with me. So every time now, for the last 44 years, whenever I do Julan Yatra, I look at Radharani's eyes. I see all the decorations and it's beautiful, but Radharani is again piercing my soul. So you came, you were with us, eh? So this is Krishna consciousness. Now again, today it's a festival, beautiful festival. Today is the descent of Krishna's original expansion, Lord Balaram, Baladev, into this world. And there's another celebration. We're going to have an absolute fantastic time again today, another party. And right here in front of the Lord himself, as Lord Nityananda and Lord Baladev, they're giving their darshan to us, they're giving us their blessing. The Supreme Personality is unborn, the source of everything and the cause of all causes. He creates this material existence as a facility for those who want to enjoy separate from himself. And therefore the three modes of material nature have created innumerable ways in which we can intoxicate and infatuate our minds and forget the real relationship with God. We are so fortunate by Prabhupada's mercy that we have that realization and understanding of God consciousness. Creating a life which ultimately, when we're completely intoxicated by the material world, it leads to despair and sadness. So the Lord descends in this material world to call us back. And Krishna says, don't be attracted to my illusory energy, Maya. Come back to me. I warned you, this material world is a horrible place. Please come back to me. You've been cheated, you'll be frustrated. Krishna's constantly giving us these instructions. Your whole life's pursuits will culminate in death. And this is what was pointed out here. And Yamaraj, when we go to death, he doesn't see what education we've had. He doesn't recognize how beautiful we are. He doesn't recognize whether we're poor or rich. The only thing that is attractive for Yamaraj, the only thing that means anything to Yamaraj is, at the time of death, what is your consciousness? What are you thinking about? And the main thing is, have you served God in this lifetime? This is the crux. Have you served God in this lifetime? So in my interfaith duties, I stress this point all the time. There may be many, many different philosophies, but they know the Hare Krishna man will always say, have you served God in this lifetime? What are you doing to serve God in this lifetime? And some religions, we've done this and that, but I always say, but how's that serving God? God is a person, how are you serving God? So this is what Yamaraj is looking for. What's your consciousness? What your state of consciousness is. Krishna comes to this material world out of his infinite and causeless mercy. Krishna has no father, Krishna has no mother, but he appears in this world with a father and a mother in most every incarnation, and as a wonderful pastime to exchange love with his devotees and to attract our hearts to him. So Krishna makes these arrangements. And Balaram is no different than Krishna himself, Lord Balaram. There is absolutely no difference between Lord Balaram and Krishna. But as Balarama and Krishna assists himself in his loving pastimes. This is a really interesting quote. Balaram, Krishna, assists himself in his loving pastimes. So the thing is, when we speak of an expansion, so Lord Balaram is an expansion of Krishna. When we speak of an expansion, generally for our materially covered mind, it's inconceivable. Because in the spiritual world, Balaram is always existing and Krishna is always existing. Neither one existed before or after the other. It's eternal. There's no past, present, future, anything. They just have wonderful pastimes in the spiritual world. So when we speak of expansion, just somehow or other, with material our minds, we have to get around to the fact that Krishna and Balaram are the same personality, expanded in two forms eternally for their own enjoyment. So they're both the same. But in the same way, we may say, well, I'm a jiva also. Am I also linked with, and I'm also linked, and I'm also an expansion of Krishna. The difference is that Krishna and Balaram are full expanded, and the jivas are infinitesimal part and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and subordinate to the Lord in every respect. We're also eternally existing as part and parcels, but we're meant for his pleasure. That's our job. And this is the problem. We want to enjoy for ourselves. So ultimately, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has only one purpose. The purpose of Krishna is to enjoy. The purpose of Krishna is to enjoy. And we are eternally manifested from him to be enjoyed by him, and to give the experience of, and that experience gives us ultimate ecstasy, to be enjoyed by Krishna. That gives us the ultimate ecstasy. That's our constitutional nature. But we want to enjoy outside of Krishna, which is the problem, and that's what we have to work on. We've forgotten that principle, and therefore we look for enjoyment in places where we find ultimately only misery. So every aspect of the material world, basically, if it's devoid of that connection with Krishna, ends up in misery. The more we become attached to enjoyments outside of our loving relationship with Krishna, the more we become frustrated and we form ourselves in bondage. Krishna comes and tells us in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, here I am, worship me, mamana bhavamada bhakto. In the Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter, always think of me, become my devotee, render service unto me, surely you will come to me. Krishna is saying like that, he's reminding us always. And he's given a guarantee, if you do this, you'll come to me without fail. This is a guarantee that Krishna is giving. So Krishna and Balarama are eternally existing in the spiritual world as transcendental cowherd boys. All they do is play, have fun. Like today we were reading, Prabhu was reading out the nice pastimes of Dhanukasura. There are so many different pastimes with Krishna and Balaram. They're always having fun. They never take anything too seriously. It's just a fun time. Srila Prabhupada explains that Krishna and Balaram, in all their opulences and all their powers and all their beauties, everything is identical. Everything about Krishna and Balaram are identical. The only difference is that Krishna appears with a complexion which is beautifully darkish blue like a thundercloud, and Lord Balaram appears with a complexion like a spring cloud, soft and pure and white. When Lord Krishna descends, and we're celebrating Janmashtami in a couple of weeks' time, he comes with the paraphernalia and entourage of the spiritual world. So everything comes with Krishna. The whole lot, everything from the spiritual world comes. So before him, he sends his elder brother Balaram. So Lord Balaram comes to just make the path ready for Krishna. Krishna came at a time of great crisis. We all know the story about Lord Kamsa. He was a great asura, big demon, who is the personification of greed. It's said that Kamsa was the personification of greed. He wanted everything for himself. He exploited everything and everyone, and he was an enemy of the Lord. So he created such a disturbance that the demigods approached Lord Brahma. Brahma went to Lord Vishnu. Lord Brahma, of course, is the father of all the demigods. He's the guru of the demigods, and he went to the shore of the ocean of milk and prayed to Kshirodakshai Vishnu, who was on the island of Shwetadvip, to somehow or other intercede with this great demon. How can we stop this great demon? And because he prayed with great faith and devotion, the Lord revealed himself within his heart and said that he would soon descend. So this is what the story is. We can read that pastime, as we will be doing with Janmashtami coming up. So Vasudeva and Devaki were getting married. We all know that story, and we're going to hear that more in Janmashtami. And Kamsa, after their marriage, he was a cousin brother of Devaki, and he was driving her home on his chariot, and because he wanted to make her happy. Even demons are very attached to their families. So, he wanted to drive her home and do the right thing. But their attachment soon tainted due to personal interest. This is the thing with materialists, Materialists, if you give them pleasure, they're your friend. But if you threaten their self-interest, if somehow or other you threaten their self-interest, then you become their enemy. So haven't you noticed that, especially in this day and age today? It's so true in today's society. If you wrong a person, that's it. So anyway, here we had Kamsa, and he's riding the chariot, and we all know the story. And then there was a voice from the sky that told Kamsa, "The 8th son of your sister will kill you." And he drew his sword, and he was about to take Devaki's life. And then Vasudeva said, "Don't take her life." Philosophically, he tried to explain to him not to do that, but ultimately he said, "I'll give you all the children as they're born, and you won't need to fear anything." So Devaki is no threat, so he accepted, and ultimately he imprisoned them both, and every child that was born he lifted and beat them against the stones until they were dead. So that's the first 6 kids that came. 6 children were dead. Can you imagine how devastating that would have been for a mother, So it's a long story, but anyway, to cut it short, then she became pregnant for the 7th time. And this child was very, very special. Now it's important to note that he was not born, nor was he conceived like children of this world. This is a very important point to note, that in Krishna's arrangement, Devaki became pregnant not by the usual ways. She entered the mind of Vasudeva's mind. Krishna entered the mind of Vasudeva and was transferred to Devaki's mind and entered her womb. So she was pregnant, for months she was pregnant, and her effulgence and love for the baby grew as the baby grew in her womb. And then Lord Krishna called Yogamaya, a Yogamaya potency, and told Yogamaya that Balaramji is within the womb of Devaki. And he is my eternal servant, he said. Although he is God himself, he is God in the mood of a servant. And he appeared within the womb just to make her womb so nice for my appearance. So there's a whole story attached to the 6 previous births, but the point of the matter was that Balaram was there to clean the way for Krishna. If Lord Balaram's business is to sanctify the heart and make a nice place for Krishna to live, that's his job. And therefore Balaram is the original guru or spiritual master. The spiritual master is the representative of Balaram in this world. All great genuine acharyas, teachers of God consciousness who descend this world, they descend in the world to really preach God consciousness, Krishna consciousness. They are completely empowered by Lord Balaram. So they've come to do Lord Balaram's work. Anyone who approaches them by their divine grace, which comes through their example and through their instructions, they clean a person's heart. That's the job of a spiritual master. They make their hearts such a wonderful place for purified devotional service. That Krishna will be very pleased and happy to reveal himself within that sanctified heart. So the spiritual master cleans the place for Krishna to come within our hearts. And this is the business of a spiritual master. In the age of Kali Yuga, Krishna advented in this material world as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Along with Balarama appeared as Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda is also known as Nitai, and Nityananda Prabhu and Nityananda Ram. He donned the role of Lord Chaitanya's principal associate for spreading the chanting of the holy names of Lord Krishna in the form of Harinam Sankirtan, the process of connecting the Lord to the Lord in this age. He distributed the mercy of Lord Krishna to all the fallen, materially conditioned souls of this age by congregational chanting of the holy names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He distributed that mercy, and according to the teachings of the Acharyas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cannot be approached or understood without taking shelter of Nityananda Prabhu, who is the original guru of all the universes. He serves as the intermediary between Lord Chaitanya and his devotees. He is the second body of the Lord, manifesting as Balaram to Krishna, Lakshman to Sri Ram, and Nityananda to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The real spiritual master is the humble representative of Baladev, and their business is to cleanse and purify an aspiring devotee's heart. This is done by Lord Balaram's divine grace coming through him or her. So that in a sanctified heart, purified of all envious and selfish motives, Krishna naturally reveals himself with all his beauty. So this, hey, Haribol, sit down. Good boy. So this is Balaram's grace. So we may think that sometimes we don't have a connection with Krishna, but you do. If you are a preacher, if you're out there teaching and presenting Krishna consciousness to people, we've all had that situation where all of a sudden you met a new person, and the new person inquires a little bit about Krishna consciousness. They've somehow seen your neck beads or something. Oh, you're Hare Krishna. Your instruction then to them is Lord Balaram enthusing you to teach. It's Lord Balaram directly, and sometimes you think, where did I get the inspiration to actually say what I'm saying to this person? Somehow what you're saying at the time is just the right thing. So this is Lord Balaram. And sometimes you wonder, well, is Krishna ever having a relationship with me? We all as preachers have that understanding that sometimes you have that intuitive thing that you should speak to that person and not this person. You can bring this topic up. That is actually Lord Balaram enthusing you. Krishna is actually there. So Krishna reveals himself, and all you can do is just fall in love with him. So when you've introduced Krishna, just like I was explaining about little Radharani and the Julian Yatra, you can't escape it. That's it, you've fallen in love. I fell in love with little Radharani. And later I had the opportunity of worshipping little Radha and Krishna, and you just can't forget that first connection, that purification. And that love is like an unlimited ocean. It just increases and increases and increases. And I can't even imagine now how I felt 40 years ago. I still feel the same sort of person, but my love for Krishna has increased. And when you dive into the ocean of devotion, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, all your desires are eternally fulfilled. Everything you've ever wanted, and all you ever want is really just to serve Krishna better, somehow or another, are fulfilled. Many of you know that we've been striving for a long time, a lot of devotees have been striving for a long time to ultimately get a centre in the western suburbs. And on Saturday we had the Yajna to inaugurate the opening of a centre in the western suburbs. And while the Yajna was going on, and Prana Prabhu and Stoka Krishna Prabhu were doing the Yajna, it was like another desire was fulfilled. The only desires actually that a devotee has is, how can I push on more this movement? Yeah, there may still be hanging on desires that we have, but really the essence of our desires is, how can we serve Krishna more? So anyway, so Krishna told Yogamaya, Balaram has gone to prepare the womb for my arrival. Now you kindly transfer the womb of Devaki, who is in prison of Kamsa, in Mathura, to the womb of Rohini, who is living under the protection of Sri Nanda Maharaj and Gokul Vrindavan. So Rohini was also Vasudev's wife. At that stage you could have multiple wives. That was the usual sort of system. Even within Western culture, that was there at some time. So when Vasudev was captured and imprisoned, somehow he made the arrangement that Rohini would go to Braj and be looked after by his beloved friend Nanda Maharaj. And he took care of her and protected her. So Nanda Maharaj treated Rohini with such love and respect and gave her all facilities in the simple cowherd community of Braja. So she lived there, this princess lived there very happily. There were many wonderful stories, and she was, now Rohini became pregnant, and when she was pregnant, 7 months pregnant, she had this really, there's amazing stories about this whole pastime, but she became pregnant, and then 7 months later she had a dream. And in the dream, she dreamt that the child was leaving her. The baby that she had was leaving her. But then she was given the instruction that Shankarshan, the expansion of the Lord, is going to enter her womb. So she had this great realization. And it is explained that the original Balaram was actually in the womb of Rohini, and his expansion of Shankarshan was in the womb of Devaki. This is pretty amazing. And they both were 7 months pregnant. So, and so Devaki was 7 months pregnant, Rohini was 7 months pregnant, and Shankarshan merged into the form of the original Balaram in the womb of Rohini. So that's how it happened. So when we call Balaram Rohini Nandana, we should know that Rohini is actually Balaram's eternal mother. Eternal mother. In the spiritual world in Goloka, Rohini is eternally performing the Leela of being the mother of Balaram. Through her, he appeared in this world in such a wonderful way. So that's when Lord Balaram arrived on this day, some 5,000 and something years ago. Balaram ki jai. So he appeared in this world in such a wonderful way. And all the residents of Vrindavan had a wonderful celebration, just as we're having a wonderful celebration today. I presume they're making Varuni juice. I remember in the early days, we came from a very, how would you say, a world where intoxication was part of our life. And so after being a devotee for a number of years, the thought that, hey, this Varuni juice is an intoxicant, we drank buckets of it. And Korma would make absolutely buckets of Varuni juice. And we would drink it, and everyone would become a little merry. I remember Keshava used to start dancing and doing all funny sorts of things, and you'll see, I don't know how much Varuni juice you can drink nowadays because there's so many devotees, but this is a wonderful way to get intoxicated spiritually. My wife one time, she had so much Varuni juice, and she had to ring up her mother for some reason or other. And she was slurring her words, and she couldn't talk straight. She just kept on giggling and everything. And the mother said, what are you? You drunk or something? And she said, yeah, I'm drunk on Krishna consciousness. So there's wonderful celebrations, and we're going to also have wonderful celebrations to welcome Lord Balaram, who came to this world by his inconceivable mercy to deliver all of us. And when Krishna was born, he and Balaram, because of Rohini and Yashoda, lived together. So these two little babies were best of friends. And it is explained how not one, but two God, in two forms, with his smiles, was blessing the residents of Gokul, and they were plunged into ecstasy. So this is really interesting. God in two forms with his smile, so both Balarama and smile, was blessing the residents of Gokul. This is our destiny, to be with Krishna and Balaram in the spiritual world. That's where we want to be. We want to have those pastimes with Krishna and Balaram. In the spiritual world, people have bodies made of spirit. Our real personality is the spirit soul. There's no more wars, there's no more illness, there's no more pain, there's no more suffering, there's no more pandemics, no more restrictions, no more lockdowns, just relationship with Krishna and Balaram. Everyone is interested only in the Supreme Lord, and everybody is in a constant festival. So like I said at the beginning of class, in Krishna consciousness it seems like we have a festival every day, and in Krishna consciousness we really know how to party. So this is what's happening in the spiritual world. And sometimes the Lord comes to this world. He came 5,000 years ago and he brought the spiritual world with him, and he performs pastimes in Vrindavan together with the cowherd and Balaram. And today is Balaram's appearance day. He appears first and he's said to be the expansion of Krishna. Krishna is Svamsa Rupa and Balaram is Svamsa Prakash. Balaram is not different from Krishna, but Balaram's mood is that of a servant. It is our nature also to be servants. We all have to serve someone. Atheists don't want to serve anyone, yet they have to serve someone, even if it means their own senses. They have to serve their senses. It's interesting, back in the early days when we used to preach a lot at Gopal's, we used to get atheists coming, right? And they would say no, and we would preach to them and try to encourage them to become Krishna conscious and try and give them a book or sell them a book. And one of the things we said, we're all servants, you have to serve the Supreme Lord. And they all said, no, I don't serve anybody. I don't serve anybody. And I said, yes you do. Everybody serves somebody. No, I don't. What about the government? No, I don't care for the government. What about your religion? I don't have a religion. And they would go on and on like this. And I said, but you serve your bodily demands. And I said, no, I don't. And I said, okay, my dear sir, we put this one to the test. And I'd just look them straight in the eye and say, stop blinking. And they would look, and then they'd blink. I said, you blinked. You couldn't control it. You're serving your body. Your body is telling you to blink. Now, stop going to the toilet for a day. See how you can manage that. So people are serving. And if you make people aware of their serving, they didn't like it that I told them that, but anyway. By following Balaram's example, we can become pure servants of Krishna and become qualified to enter the spiritual world. So by service only, hey, Haribol Mitu, how are you? Good to see you. Oh, fantastic. Mitu is a very dear friend. I have to introduce her. You come at a very auspicious day, Balaram's appearance day, Mitu. Yeah, Mitu is the lady who is organising the Indian Film Festival here in Melbourne. She has done for many, many years, and she's a very dear devotee of Lord Krishna, and she's my very dear friend. Jai, Mitu.
And please, everybody is invited. Our website is iskoncentres.com.au. I'm always, I come here for blessing everyone.
Yep.
If there's anyone, everyone has my number here. If you need any tickets, any show you want to watch, we have a watch night on Sunday.
Yeah.
So if you want any complimentary tickets, please just let me know.
Just let me know.
Happily.
If you want to enjoy, come and see Bhakta.
We have come late, please just come.
Thank you, Mitu. That was an advertisement.
So I'm so sorry to...
No, you're fine. We needed an advertisement break. We're used to advertisements between lectures nowadays. So, thanks, Mitu. So, following Lord Balaram's example, we become perfect servants of Krishna and become qualified to enter into the spiritual world. There are so many pastimes about Lord Balaram. One thing that I would suggest you do today is pick up a Krishna book and read some of the pastimes of Lord Balaram. They're so enthusing and so wonderful, you know. Life is not about what we get, it's what we give. Giving is the thing. This is the lesson of Lord Balaram. It is the duty of a devotee to serve the Lord, to bring others to the platform of unalloyed service to the Lord by association and gentle instruction. Associating, becoming a friend, just like I'm a friend of Mitu's, and gently instructing. Just giving some idea that actually this is the real life, to be Krishna conscious. By giving, then we become a servant. In the science of Krishna consciousness, one can become a spiritual master. When you enter Krishna consciousness, you automatically become a spiritual master. Each and every one of us, even the young kids, you're all spiritual masters. And there are 3 types of spiritual masters. Vatma Prakasha Guru, and a Diksha Guru, and a Shiksha Guru. The spiritual master who first gives information, and that's all of us, we've all given information, is the Vatma Prakasha Guru. And this is so important, the first person that we spark that Krishna consciousness in. So, the spiritual master who initiates is called the Diksha Guru, and the spiritual master who gives instruction for elevation is called the Shiksha Guru. So we may be the initial person that enlivens someone, but then if you can direct someone to the Shiksha Guru, that is who is more advanced or knowledgeable than you are, or that's then your direction. But you're also a very important part in that person's spiritual life, you know, that you give that direction right from the start. Like all of us, if I ask you who was the first person that introduced you to Krishna consciousness, that person has a big part in your life, correct? That person who first said to you, you know, those Hare Krishnas are not too bad. They're actually very, very nice people. And what do they believe? And then when you instructed that person, that's Haribol Mitu. That person is then, you know, really attracted by you. And then it's your job to then pass them on. Because our movement is a Shiksha movement. It's an instruction, giving spiritual instruction is our movement. So it is our duty to Lord Balaram that we share Krishna consciousness with as many as we can by giving our association, friendship and instruction to those who we come in contact with, relieving them of their suffering. Janmashtami is a perfect time, so new people are coming. Be gentle, well-mannered and giving. So we've got a great opportunity. You know how many people we're expecting this time in Janmashtami? Usually we get about 10,000. I think this year we're going to double it. So we have to be ready for it. If you think we were packed at Julan Yatra, and you know it's a nightmare to try and organise, and we can some tempers may fray, but we have to remember to be gentle. Some people will be coming for the first time. Just example, Mitu Mataji is very influential within the Hindu community. And just by striking up a friendship and giving association, she's become more and more accepting of Krishna consciousness. And so if we have an opportunity at Janmashtami to meet someone new, we all know who we are and we can sit and talk to each other, oh, what are you doing now and where are you and how's life, blah, blah. But if you see someone that you haven't recognized before, then actually go up to them and say, hi, is this the first time to our temple? Make yourself known, befriend them, make them gentle, anything you can do for them. They maybe need a bit of prasadam or they need to move something or whatever. Be really hospitable, really make an effort to welcome them. And that way you're actually doing Lord Balaram's work. You're preparing the groundwork, you're starting to clean their heart to accept Krishna. Understand that Lord Balaram works through you. Lord Balaram works through you. And so when you do that, this is the perfect opportunity. Take advantage of that. Not only the adults, but also the kids. You know, if you see some other kids that are coming with their parents and everything, you're potent preachers. All of you are potent preachers. Let Lord Balaram work through you and introduce Krishna consciousness to them. Just give them some sort of insight. You know, gently. Really, really gently, very friendly. Then we'll really have a great festival. So I'll stop here. There were a few things that I wanted to mention. So has anybody got any comments or questions at all? And Mahatma's not here either. What can we do? So make an effort on this day. Balaram's appearance day is really, really important because we have that duty to actually open the hearts, clean the hearts of the fallen conditioned souls. All of us. It's our responsibility. As Srila Prabhupada did for all of us. Srila Prabhupada ki, Balaram Purnima ki, Lord Balaram ki, Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandir ki, Nitya Go Premanande. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.